They say a man who represents himself has a fool for a client. Well, with God as my witness, I am that fool.
What's up, my wizards? It's Deb from SBMTG on the YouTube.com. Down there, we like magic, you know by now. And today, I'm giving you probably the most anticipated deck of the season, if my comment section is to be believed. Every day in the comments, all I get is zombies. Zombies, zombies. So today, I guess I'm going to give the people what they want. Today, I figured I'd go ahead and bring you the deck that not only I wanted to build the most, but it seemed like my people wanted to see the most, Esper Zombies. In this version of the deck, we've got like aristocratian type tricks, and we've got a bunch of one-sided wrath effects. So, if that doesn't sound good, I don't know what does. Let me go ahead and show you the deck. Now, we're playing 26 creatures in this thing, and that's kind of a lot of creatures, but we have to play that much for a couple of different cards here. But it all starts with 4 copies of Cryptbreaker. Now, Cryptbreaker is still one of the most dangerous creatures in the deck. You know, you got to play the playset of him because he sets up so much for us. He's one of the easiest ways we have of discarding cards into our yard, which we want to do, whether it's Haunted Dead, Prized Amalgam, or even a couple of other things. So being able to set up those discards, you know, as early as turn 1, definitely something we want to do. And we want to play a bunch of 1-drops so that we can maximize the value of stuff like Voldaren Pariah and even Dark Salvation, for that matter. I'm playing a couple of copies of that. Cryptbreaker is good for a multitude of reasons, and it's probably the best thing the deck can play on turn 1. But Cryptbreaker's old news. We got a new 1-drop zombie from Amonkhet, Dread Wanderer, which I'm going to play a 3 of. It's just great to have a guy who can come back over and over, you know. With all the stuff that we're discarding, it is not too hard to get to Heckpin in the deck at all. And it's also just kind of nice to have an aggressive 1-drop. 2-power 1-drop's nice. Moving on to the 2-drops, I'm going to play 2 copies of Relentless Dead in the deck. And some people might be tempted to play 4 copies of this, but I don't know about that. And people that have been testing these zombies lists for a while will tell you that Relentless Dead is actually kind of one of the worst cards in the deck. It's really, really mana hungry, but it works so well with some of the tricks we're trying to pull off that we got to play it. And there's zombies in the deck that would be tough to get back out of the graveyard once they're there if we didn't have Relentless Dead. And this is good with either of our 1-drops, you know. If we don't have Heckpin or we don't want to spend the mana on it, whatever, you know, then we can always just get back a Dread Wanderer with a Relentless Dead for only an extra mana. Same thing with Cryptbreaker. Relentless Dead dies, we can always get back a Cryptbreaker for just an extra mana. Pretty sweet deal. We're going to play 3 copies of Wayward Servant in the deck, the white card in the whole 75 cards between the main deck and the sideboard. This is the 1 card with white in the casting cost. Really, this is basically a mono black zombies deck that splashes white to play this card and also can make blue just in case it needs to hard cast a Prized Amalgam. There's definitely a lot of ways that we can get to just put them on a clock with a Wayward Servant, and if we can play it early enough in the game, it can set us up to not only deal like maximum damage with it, that's just a lot of output, but it can also help keep our life total respectable against aggro matchups. Onto the 3-drops, we're going to play 4 whole copies of Plague Belcher in the deck. We might be able to go down to 3, but I really like the 4 because it really facilitates a lot of the aristocrats tricks that we're trying to do in the deck. And between Wayward Servant and this, we basically have a revolving door of drain, you know. Well, I guess drain in the case of Wayward Servant when our zombies enter the battlefield. And then when they die, we'll hit the opponent for 1 life loss. It's not bad at all. And obviously this can kill things to help ping our opponent. That's cool. Like we can kill our own Dread Wanderer, for instance, and then get it back just a couple of turns later. Not hard. We can kill our own Relentless Dead, and if we've got extra mana, we can get it and even something else back sometimes. So this just has a lot of cool tricks it can do, and if we have multiples out, it's pretty amazing. You know, we don't have a whole lot of ways outside of Plague Belcher itself and Voldaren Pariah to sacrifice or get rid of our own creatures in the deck, but we're not looking at it that way. We want to deal a bunch of damage with all of our guys, keep them on board even if they die. We can just get them right back, you know. Eventually overwhelm the opponent and deal a bunch of damage to them. Sometimes, though, just like with Wayward Servant, we'll need a little bit of reach. Wayward Servant provides that, and so does Plague Belcher. It can deal an extra 4 or 5 damage to you, for you over the course of the game. That can make all the difference. And I forgot to mention, by the way, that it's a 3-mana 5-power guy when you want it to be. That's good enough right there. We're going to play 4 Prized Amalgam in the deck, and this is the other best card in the deck. It's also the blue card in the deck. There's no other blue stuff in all 75 cards here. Again, we want to keep the deck mostly mono black because we have a huge enormous commitment to black in this deck, you know, so we want to be able to make all the black mana, and in fact, all but one of our lands makes black. That's how committed we are. But as for the card itself, we've got lots of ways to put this into our graveyard, whether it's Cryptbreaker, Haunted Dead, or even Sinister Concoction, which is probably the easiest, the cheapest way at least, to put this into our graveyard. We can hardcast it if we need to. We can play it and then sacrifice it to Voldaren Pariah. We can do that too, you know, and get it right back. Well, it's not hard. So, Prized Amalgam is great and is one of the best friends of Wayward Servant. Pretty definitely, you know. We've just got a couple of prized amalgams in the graveyard along with the Relentless Dead or a Dread Wanderer, then we can just kind of deal a lot of damage fairly quickly with a Wayward Servant. Even if we're not getting extra value out of Plague Belcher or Wayward Servant, it's just yet another creature that can keep coming back, man. We got Dread Wanderer, we got Haunted Dead, we got Relentless Dead, and also this. Just our creatures are going to keep coming, and in this fairly removal-heavy format, with cards like Fatal Push that would normally be pretty good against us, we just shrug it off. Not a problem at all. We're going to play 3 copies of Haunted Dead in the deck, and you'll usually see 4 copies in a lot of zombies lists, but I don't think that it's imperative with what we're trying to do here. It is nice that it gives us a little bit of flying, just a tiny little bit of flying, so we can block dudes or fly over if we need to. That's cool, you know. Just putting 2 guys on board is always nice for a relatively cheap cost, provided that we can pitch it into our graveyard before we play it. So, but even if we're forced to hardcast this is sometimes decent on some boards, and at least helps you develop your own board pretty easily. But to finish off the creatures, we're going to play 3 copies of Voldaren Pariah, whose name I've mentioned a couple of times here. But again, this is one of the best creatures in the whole deck, and maybe one of the whole reasons that this deck is particularly strong. It's one of these one-sided wrath effects, and yeah, we have to sack 3 guys to transform it, right? But it's kind of not fair because all of our dudes can come back. I just said the names of all of our dudes that can come back. It's like 4 of our creatures, most of which we're playing 3 or 4 of. So, just super amazing card right here. We're playing 26 creatures plus Cryptbreaker makes extra zombies. Plus Haunted Dead makes an extra creature when it hits the battlefield. So not at all hard to transform a Voldaren Pariah. And keep in mind, one of the most important things about the card is that you can madness it out at instant speed. Super awesome. You can do it during your opponent's combat step or anytime during your opponent's turn. That's dope. And you can actually, in rare occasions, use it to stop the Saheeli combo because they'll have to sacrifice their Felidar Guardian if they don't have anything else, which they usually won't. But at that point in the game, it's hard to imagine they'll have 3 other creatures besides Felidar Guardian, even in the deck that plays like Whirler Virtuoso and like Rogue Refiner and stuff. So really helps shut down Saheeli if you get it right. This is the hardest way in the deck to shut it down, but it happens sometimes, and so it's worth pointing out. It's also a huge flyer, just a 6/5 flyer once you transform it. Not bad at all. I mean, again, we need some flying in this deck, and often this is the coup de grace, you know. If we can't win off of, like, extra reach, or we can't just win off of attacking on the ground, then Voldaren Pariah can come through and just swing 6 in the air and win in just a couple of turns. The rest of the main deck, besides the lands, is 8 spells and 1 Planeswalker, and all of the 8 spells are all removal. We got to play some removal in this format. We just kind of have to. So to start it off, we'll play 3 copies of Sinister Concoction because it's removal that synergizes. This allows us to pitch cards into the graveyard, which automatically is good in this deck, and there's a chance that we'll get like a prized amalgam off of milling ourselves. That's pretty cool. We'll take that. And it just unconditionally kills a guy for just an extra mana. It's really 2 mana, but you can spread it out among a couple of turns. So this is one of the easier ways to get Voldaren Pariah on like turn 4. It's not hard. So, and you'll essentially kill 4 of their dudes if you do it that way. So Sinister Concoction is just way better than it looks in this deck. Unconditionally kills a guy, stops cat combo at instant speed. That's pretty important, and helps us like put stuff in our graveyard. So like, why would we not do that? I'm also going to play 3 Grasp of Darkness in the deck, and I think that Grasp of Darkness is going to be as important as it's ever been in this standard environment, you know? We've got the new Gideon of the Trials, that if he becomes a creature, if they're dumb enough to make that happen when they play in against black, and we have 2 up, you know, if they're dumb enough to make it a 4/4, then we can always grasp it to death. So that's that going for it. It can kill Cat Lady combo, just target the Felidar Guardian at instant speed. It's got that going for it, and there's gods in this format, especially Hazaret, which this also kills at instant speed. So Grasp is just looking really good nowadays, and I think it's going to have more of a place in this format than it previously did. So I'm going to play the 3 copies because it not only does all of those important things, but it also kills like 85% of the other creatures in the format. So let's play it. Now I'm going to play 2 copies of Dark Salvation in the deck, and at first I was on 4 copies of this, and I don't think it's good at 4. I think the card is good enough, though, to warrant a 2 of in the main deck. This will kill an awful lot of stuff for you, more than you might think, and even for just 1 mana in the later game as a top deck, it's not a bad card. Being able to hit things for -1/-1 is pretty good in this format. I just talked about that. with Grasp of Darkness. Same thing here. This can even kill Aronis if we have the right amount of zombies out, which I think may be kind of important in this format. And it doesn't have to just be good when you cast it for 1 and you've already got a field full of zombies, you know? You can cast this for 3 mana, get a zombie, or 5 mana, get 2 zombies. And it's still a really good spell, especially with Wayward Servant out. This is deceptively good on turn 3 if you got Crypt Breaker on turn 1. If you go Crypt Breaker turn 1, any zombie turn 2, including Crypt Breaker making a zombie. You can do that, pitch a Haunted Dead, whatever you want to do. And then turn 3, Dark Salvation for 1, basically, you know, pump 3 mana into it, give a creature -3/-3, kill one of their guys, and get a zombie of your own. And now you got enough zombies to tap with Crypt Breaker and draw a card if you want to even do that. So, like, Dark Salvation is deceptively good even at just 3 mana. So, again, I think the card warrants a slot, but I wouldn't go crazy with it. And to finish off the main deck, we're just going to play 1 copy of Liliana Death's Majesty, which again is the coolest name for a Planeswalker ever. I've said that before. This is my favorite name for a Planeswalker. Just want to reiterate. But Liliana just does everything. I don't know that 5 mana Planeswalkers are exactly where we want to be in this format, but the deck is already dirty enough that we're going to get to turn 5 if all things go our way. So we can definitely afford to play her. We are running enough lands to do it too. So I just don't see any reason not to run at least 1 copy, and Liliana is impressive enough that you might want to consider a second one. She makes zombies, which is just obviously straight up good for this deck. There are a lot of reasons. Already covered those. She can also just be a one-sided Wrath, just like Voldaren Pariah, except she's a true one-sided Wrath, except for our own Pariah, which is a little weird, but still good enough, definitely, to win the game a lot of the time. And she can just get stuff back from the graveyard that doesn't normally get to come back, like Wayward Servant is a good example. Plague Belcher is a good example, you know. Also, I should point out that when resolved against control, Liliana is going to win you the game. Probably, unless they have cast out or something, then Liliana's going to go a long way towards, she's just a free creature factory that ups her loyalty for doing that every turn. Or if your opponents manage to kill some of your important guys, you can just get them right back, put them straight dab on the battlefield. So, like, when resolved against control, Liliana is a heartbreaker. She's ridiculous. We're going to play 25 lands in the deck, and I know, it sounds like an awful lot, but the deck is incredibly hungry for mana. You know, we've got to either play or Madness in a Voldaren Pariah, and Madnessing it in costs extra mana no matter what we do. You know, Relentless Dead is extremely mana intensive, as is Dread Wanderer if we want to do anything else on that turn. Haunted Dead requires mana as well. Just a lot of stuff that we're doing in the deck is, you know, requires a lot of mana. Almost all of our cards are mana sinks. So we need to be consistent in our drops. And not only that, playing extra lands helps make sure that we have extra things to discard if we need to. Here's your sideboard here, and I think things are fairly self-explanatory. We got Fatal Push, mostly against Mardu vehicles. We hate Heart of Kiran an awful lot, so let's get rid of that card as often as possible. Trespasser's Curse against the other amazing deck in the format. Cat Lady is still a deck, and unless the Banhammer comes down in just 2 days now, it will probably still be the best deck in the format. So Trespasser's Curse is just ridiculous against it. If we can get it down resolved on turn 2, there's not a whole lot that the combo player can do about it. So Trespasser's Curse is the best way we have of stopping the combo outside of Authority, but I don't want to rely on a white card to stop that combo. Scrap Heap Scrounger, I'll just play the 2 copies of, and it's just extra resiliency against control. I'm not even really sure how much we need it, especially with Magma Spray in the format. A card that we absolutely hate. We hate Magma Spray, but I haven't seen it around too much so far, at least, so that's good. Never to Return is not a card that I necessarily want to play, but I have been seeing a lot of Gideon of the Trials, and if we can't beat that, then we lose the game. Guaranteed. So I really want to play a way to just target Planeswalkers in this format. We're playing a Colossus, which is another sacrifice outlet. That's a good thing to have. I actually considered Bantu, by the way, in the main deck, but just didn't like him. Just simplified, didn't like him. But Colossus is obviously pretty good. We got nothing but zombies, so Colossus can get really big, and we can bring him in against aggro matchups. Now, before I do the power rankings, I figured I'd stop off and talk about a couple of cards that aren't in the deck, that I'm pretty sure I'm going to get in the comments section. And there are probably going to be more than this. We'll go ahead and address a couple of them. First of all, Dygraf Colossus, and a couple of other 3-drops for that matter, but Dygraf Colossus isn't good. It's just not great. Again, I want to simplify it just by saying that, but it looks like it would go pretty good in the deck, especially with Wayward Servant, but it just wasn't the card I wanted it to be, especially for 3 mana. I felt like Plague Belcher was a much better card. Same thing with Lord of the Accursed. For 3 mana, I just felt like we didn't need the Anthem effect. Feels like win more. We dirtle, we wait till our opportunity to win, and then we take it. We fill the board with creatures, and then we Alpha Strike. There's a lot of ways to win. We can drain off of Wandering Servant, or a Wayward Servant, or Plague Belcher. But just like, having a buff like that is not one of the ways that we win the game. It just feels like win more. And a bunch of our guys already have Menace or other evasion like Voldar and Pariah. So, and obviously this doesn't give Voldar and Pariah Menace either. So it just felt like a not entirely necessary card. Although, in the Mono Black Zombies deck that plays like this, and sometimes Liliana's Mastery, and also Metallic Mimic, having all those Anthem effects in the same deck seems pretty hilarious. And then finally, I didn't play any copies of Dusk to Dawn. Did not do that in this Black-White Zombies deck. I just do not think that we have enough white mana to consistently cast this, even though we can dump it into our yard and just cast the Aftermath half if that's what we want, which a lot of the time is what we want. I felt like Dawn will be a really good mid-game refill. You know, we can get our Wayward Servant back, play it, and then start playing all our zombies again, getting drains off of the Servant. All that seems really good, but I just don't think that we pack enough white mana to consistently make this work, to be honest. But here are your power rankings right here. A final score of 65, which is not terrible considering the final cost of the deck is about $150. Now, resiliency is obviously the deck's strong point. Same thing with synergy. We've obviously got a bunch of synergy, but you'll see that versatility is also a relatively high stat compared to some of the other numbers here. And I stick by that. Versatility is relatively high in this deck. We've got a solid removal package. We can one-sided Wrath in a couple of different ways. We've got a great Planeswalker in the deck. We've got ways to draw cards with Crypt Breaker. We've got ways to flood the field with creatures. All of our guys keep coming back. There's just so much that this deck is doing, whether it's attacking for the win, whether it's just trying to get extra value off of drains, Plague Belcher, Wayward Servant, whatever. Just like a lot of ways to win in the game, even if we stall out, which is something that these Zombies decks often do. They'll get themselves into board stalls and they can't finish things. Well, Wayward Servant and the Plague Belcher help out with that an awful lot. But that's all I've got to say about this deck for now. Let me know how you felt about it and how you'd change it down there. What other zombie decks would you rather see? What do you think the best zombie deck in the format is, and are any of them going to show up at the Pro Tour or any time in between that at SCG Opens or something, you know? Let me know how you feel about zombies and how you change this deck if you have the chance down there in the comments section. You guys are always telling me how awesome my shirts are, and this Bob Marley shirt today came from a friend of mine over at Enjoy Life Apparel. And by the way, I am not selling out the big t-shirt. I got absolutely no money for telling you to go to the site, by the way. This is just a very good friend of mine. I've known for like 6 years. He's a single dad who works like 50 hours a week, and he's a great guy. So go to this website right here and check out his stuff. You can actually put in SBMTG as a coupon code, and he'll give you 15% off. He'll even give you free shipping on orders of $50 or more. He's just trying to get you to check out the site. And again, I get nothing for this endorsement at all. I just want to help this dude out because he is legit a nice guy. He'll even give you this dope sticker with every order. That thing's actually pretty sweet. But anyway, I'm Dev from SBMTG. If you're interested in following me on social media, you can go to Twitter and put in SBMTG Dev and you'll see my stupid face. So, actually, I don't know that you'll see my stupid face. I just think you'll see our stupid logo. But I probably need to change at this point. Well, till next time, guys. I'll see you down there in the comments section and I'll be working on decks. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.